It's been 149 days since Donald Trump signed the original executive order to revoke visas and immediately halt travel from 7 Muslim countries. After multiple courts ruled the ban unconstitutional, the administration watered it down, but the courts still turned him down. That is, until this Monday.
This is a no doubt major victory for the Trump administration as the High Court now has lifted the injunction on the travel ban.
Now, contrary to what trumpets claim, this is not a major victory, especially because the original ban was supposed to keep out Muslims. You know, until we figure things out. Now, this version will still enact a ban travel from 6 Muslim nations, but I guess Trump is exactly the kind of shitty master negotiator who would consider this a W, because this version is very watered down, because the Supreme Court added a provision that the ban won't affect people with bona fide relationships with people or businesses in the United States.
If there is some pressing need from one of the foreign nationals from any one of these 6 countries, they will be permitted to do so.
Now, enforcing that distinction will be problematic while issuing visas for new applicants, because even though this provision was included to reduce confusion, the historically incompetent TSA remains woefully underprepared to abruptly stop this many people from coming into the United States. To be exact, since 2006, 900,000 people have traveled to the US from these nations. However, as soon as the executive order was issued without any accompanying guidelines or protocols for enforcement, chaos obviously ensued as thousands of travelers were abruptly stopped from entering the United States. Take Sudanese Nisrin El Amin, for example. She's a green card holder who was mid-flight when Trump put his order in effect.
I was questioned extensively about whether or not I knew of radical groups in Sudan. I was asked to share my social media handles. It was a very uncomfortable pat down. I was touched in my chest and groin area, and then I was handcuffed briefly.
Now imagine the years of vetting a Muslim refugee has to go through as they make the excruciatingly difficult decision to leave their friends and some family members behind because they look to us, their foreign occupiers, as one final Hail Mary for a better life. And now some dickhead TSA officer is standing in their way like an overzealous, power-drunk nightclub bouncer who's like, we don't get paid enough to do this, but I still have to touch you in your penis area, just because the president wants to use Muslims to fearmonger to his base of angry racist hicks. I will give it to the TSA though, there's one thing that they're very good at, and that's Instagramming shit they find in people's luggage or things travelers ask if they can bring on board a plane. Also, the TSA follows me on Instagram. Just kidding, but you should. God, I'm shameless. Moving on. Now you might say,
if you're more concerned with the feelings of foreigners than the safety of Americans, you're probably a Democrat.
Because if we were truly concerned with safety, instead of focusing on refugees from any of these countries, we'd focus on white terror.
We set you free. We didn't start slavery, we ended it.
Because domestically, the real killer is terror committed on behalf of a cause that the US government has historically never been really opposed to: white nationalism.
What is wrong with diversity? It makes the world ugly. It makes the world lose all meaning. It's a way of bringing to an end a nation and a culture that was defined by white people.
White nationalist-affiliated killers have taken 119 lives since September 12, 2001, and are responsible for far more deaths than refugees from these nations, which have killed, and you might have guessed this, 0. Or if Trump truly gave a fuck about these countries and their ties to terrorism, we'd absolutely include Saudi Arabia in the list of banned countries. Saudi is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. 15 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 were Saudi nationalists. But Saudi Arabia, unlike the 7 states that are really poor, is stupid rich. So rich that they just recently signed off on a $350 billion arms deal to escalate their conflict in Yemen. A conflict in which they apply inhumane tactics like starvation to the innocent civilians of Yemen that we turn a blind eye to. So the moral of the story is, even if you take down a tower or two, the US will still favor your kingdom as long as you're rich enough to pay the US government hush money. The other reason why I mentioned the Saudi exemption is because it's the clearest indication that this ban has absolutely nothing to do with national security and everything to do with fear-mongering instead. Because if national security was Donald's chief concern, he would have spent the past couple of months trying to
figure out what the hell is going on,
instead of sword dancing with Saudi monarchs in between his golf outings. Or if Donald really cared about the safety of America, he'd fill the 16 high-up vacant positions in the Department of Homeland Security. You've heard of the DHS. It's that government agency we created to prevent terror attacks. Also, Donald cannot blame the Democrats for this either, even though he likes to. 8 of the positions don't even have a nominee. But I guess it should come as no surprise that the agency responsible for handling this executive order is only half filled, since we have a half-brained president doing a half-assed job after winning a half victory. As a matter of fact, none of this should come as a surprise to anyone. During his campaign, Trump repeatedly used Muslims as a political punching bag. So when the White House says that it isn't discriminatory, that's absolutely bullshit. The ban was never about safety. It was never about taking a pause to reconsider immigration policies. It was just to point the finger at another group of non-white problems, while the GOP advances their lifelong goals of gutting federal agencies that are actually meant to protect citizens and our consumer interests, or rip healthcare away from Americans who need it to give tax breaks to the wealthy few who don't. Ironically, the Muslim ban was supposed to go on for 90 days to figure things out. Now, we don't know how long it'll go on until the Supreme Court figures things out. I'm Hasan Piker. Please share this video with your friends if you think the Muslim ban is unconstitutional. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hasan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hasan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown.